Welcome to this week's episode of the Liberty Unveiled podcast, formerly the Teshua Unveiled podcast. I am your host, Brad Hopp, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Pastor Sam Jones. Together, we are unveiling liberty one episode at a time. We'll be discussing the latest in trafficking news, insider stories from those being delivered, and studying the Founders Bible to learn how to return America to sanity and true freedom. Our sponsor for today's show is Teshua Tea Company. Visit TeshuaTea.com or DeliveranceTea.com. Hi guys, I'm Brad with Teshua Unveiled, or now the new Liberty Unveiled podcast, and this is my friend Pastor Sam Jones. We are going through a name change, so we talked about it a little bit on the last episode, but just to make it easier for us to show up on the search and maybe get a little more attention on the podcast platforms, just decided we needed to go with an easier name. So for those of you that don't know, Teshua means, it's the Hebrew word for deliverance, but in Chinese, it actually means special tree, and so we still wanted to keep something in that deliverance, liberty vein and stuff, and so we're going through the name change on the podcast. For those of you that don't know, real briefly, my business partner Andrew is a missionary in Communist Asia, and he and the team rescue young underage girls out of sex trafficking. The whole purpose of Teshua Tea, or you can also go to DeliveranceTea.com, the two websites, they go to the same place. I should say the two URLs that go to the same place. The whole purpose of Teshua Tea Company is to bring products to the market that are made by and purchased from up front. So we purchase the products from the girls up front before we sell them over here, and to economically empower the girls that we're working with so that they have a nest egg saved up and are able to stand on their own while they're still under our care, so that when they leave, they have money saved up and they're able to, like I said, stand on their own. So we're going to go through the products a little bit. Pastor Sam wanted to kind of go through and ask some questions about some of the different podcasts or products, so this is going to be a little bit different today.
I'm sure we'll still get in a good conversation.
I'm sure we will.
We have a tendency to do that.
Yeah. So we were sampling out the ancient tree black tea infused with fragrant rice flavor, and he was talking about how much he liked it. So we're going to keep sampling that one here for a little while. And
it's a good tea.
Yeah, so, it really is.
But I got some questions here.
Okay.
And we're going to start off with the coffees.
Okay.
Mostly because I don't know much about coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So I drink coffee, just not as much as I drink tea.
Yeah.
So so it starts off here, and you got the Thai Special Blend coffee.
Right.
And then it has the Thai Medium Roast coffee and the Thai Special Blend. Oh, and this one's ground then.
Right.
Now, what's the difference here between, first of all, a special blend and a medium roast?
Okay, so the special blend is actually a 50-50 combination of a medium roast and a dark roast. So whenever I roast it, I have to do one of each, and then I blend them together in a 50-50 split. It still gives you that darker flavor to the coffee, but it's not quite as dark as, say, the actual dark roast is going to be. It's going to be a little bit lighter. You're still going to have some of the more mellow notes of the medium coffee. So,
now you're more of a coffee connoisseur.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a dark roast, medium roast, light roast kind of a guy? Which
I much prefer the lighter to medium roasts.
Okay.
And the reason I prefer the lighter to medium roast is simply because of the flavor. Because when you start going to a darker roast on a coffee, you actually mute the flavors of origin.
Okay.
And it's really like, I'm not a wine drinker, but you watch the travel shows and they're always going to the vineyards and whatnot, and they're always talking to the sommeliers, I think that's how they say it, the wine gurus, that know everything about wine under the sun and then some. And they'll be like, well, you can tell that this one's from France because of you know, this heavier.
Because the label
slate.
said it was from France. That's
Well,
how I would be able to tell. But
They'll talk about, you know, it has more of a slate flavor to it, or it'll have more of this tone to the flavor. And
no, I have noticed that's definitely true of coffee because one of the coffee shops I go to, which I should get you connected with them too, because I didn't think about that. But that's neither here nor there.
okay,
They will have some Ethiopian blends and some things. And Ethiopian, I don't think you guys have any. Do you guys have any real kind of earthy flavor in the Ethiopian blend? Which I was like, to tell you the truth, I didn't like it very much. Love this coffee, but not an Ethiopian blend kind of a guy. I was like, ooh, dirt. But I'm sure it was a great Ethiopian blend. Just wasn't my, no pun intended, cup of tea. And so. So yeah, I mean, so I could definitely see that so I didn't know that about the dark roast versus the light roast. I always thought dark roast just kind of meant it's going to be a little bit more bitter.
That will sometimes be the case on our dark roast. It doesn't get bitter because the Thai coffee doesn't exhibit the bitterness of a lot of coffees and stuff. And so, like on ours, I roast ours to 450 degrees internal bean temperature. And it just, you don't end up with that really bitter flavor to it. I mean, you might still have a little bit of that, but it's not going to be like Charbucks and their espresso beans that are as black as our coffee bagger, as black as the top of this lid.
So you're saying a good coffee shouldn't taste like a teenage attitude?
Mm-hmm. It really shouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it really shouldn't. And so when you start getting into the roast levels, like your light, your American, those are going to be much more. You're going to notice more of the floral notes. You're going to notice more of the fruit notes. Whatever that coffee exhibits, you're going to know much more of the flavors of the source of the origin. Because the soil really does affect what the flavor profile of the coffee is. There's two types of coffee beans. There's Arabica and there's Robusta. Your much lower grade beans are always Robusta. Robustas are just not usually they're a low altitude grown bean.
I don't know anything about this stuff. This is fascinating. Like, I mean,
so Robustas are grown in a lot lower altitude. Like the Thai coffee is grown at 1,400 meters, which is, if I remember, like 4,500 feet above sea level.
So Iowa coffee wouldn't be very good. I know we don't grow coffee.
We don't grow coffee here, but
you know what it tastes like if we did?
corn.
Yep.
Or beans. It just your Arabicas are grown typically at a higher elevation, and your specialty grade coffees are always going to be Arabicas, because the Robustas just don't have the flavor profile. A lot of your really inexpensive Folgers and whatnot are gonna be Robusta beans. They're just gonna not have they're gonna taste like coffee, but they're not gonna exhibit.
But not like how coffee should, in your opinion.
Right, not in how it should. The thing that really got me started on the whole coffee kick was I took the kids up to Life Flight, and I think we might have talked about this on an earlier episode, and if I did, forgive me, but we had gone up to Life Flight up by Sioux Falls here several years ago, 5-6 years ago, and there was a coffee company up there called Torch Coffee Company. They were out of California at the time. They're now out in North Carolina, I think. But they had a Rwandan coffee that I asked them to make me 6 shots of espresso, and it was the best espresso I've ever had in my entire life.
Just like drinking, you go,
oh, it was incredible. It was kind of like what you did with this earlier, where you're like, wow,
This is good tea.
yeah, and because all of a sudden I noticed all the floral notes and all the fruit notes, and I'm like, I'm either used to the charred stuff that I was making at home, or the stuff you get at Charbucks, and where it's just burned and it's bitter, and it's just, you gotta either put cream and sugar or something in it to get it down. Excuse me. And it was literally, quite honestly, it was the best espresso I've ever had. It was just absolutely stellar, and so that got me started on, you taste that, and it's like,
Well, you can't go back once you taste good stuff.
no, it's like that holy grail. You get a glimmer of it, and you're like, oh, I know that's possible. Where is it? Where do I find that again? And so that's really what started me on the journey of coffee, I guess. It's just having that.
So the next kind of sect of coffee here, this comes up, or category, is pu'er. Is that how you say it? Pu'er coffee? Now, I don't know anything about pu'er coffee, but I know a pu'er tea is basically a compressed tea in a tea cake, essentially. And it's basically the best kind of tea that you can get. That's how you should. I mean, we don't drink, well, this wasn't a pu'er tea or anything like that, and I don't drink just pu'er tea, so I'm not going to say that that's how you should drink it, but it's one of those things like pu'er tea. It's
Yeah.
and technically, coffee is just an herbal tea.
Right. Probably.
I'm
Kind of
that one
a little bit.
But
the pu'er, I don't think is necessarily that it has to be compressed, because we have some pu'er that is not.
okay.
I think it more has to do, at least my understanding through Andrew and stuff, is that it more has to do with the area that it's grown in.
Oh, okay. I know it's like really high quality, really good.
It's high elevation. A lot of times your pu'er is fermented.
Okay.
It's a fermented tea. And so, but the pu'er coffee actually comes from the same region of the world as the pu'er tea. And so, and typically that comes from the Yunnan province. So we're getting that from the girls, but right now we're waiting on shipments to reopen a little bit from
the Rona.
from the girls. So
Yeah, and they've kind of got everything shut down a little bit worldwide, so that's made things a little bit difficult. But you did mention that you just got in a shipment of the Thai coffee, and so I'm excited to try that. I just got a bag there, and going to be looking at that. But what would you say is the difference between a pu'er coffee and a Thai coffee, and which one is your favorite? Putting you on the spot here, making you pick your favorite child, your favorite coffee. And don't say McDonald's coffee.
No.
Every once in a while, I'll have somebody tell me, man, McDonald's has got really good coffee. And I'm not much of a coffee drinker, but even I know that's not true.
No. It has improved. It's the nastiest coffee I've ever in my entire life.
Casey's coffee's pretty bad.
There was like 2002. Yeah, it was 2002, so 18 years ago.
This is how much it's put a scar on his psyche. He can remember the year.
It really did. I can tell you the exact spot that I was. I can tell you so much about that trip. We had to go out to Chicago for a trade show for our printing business. And our partner had taken us all out for breakfast to the McDonald's in the McCormick Place in Chicago. And it probably did a lot to turn me off to Chicago in general, because the coffee was just that bad. It was, I mean, I ordered like a large coffee or a medium. I don't remember if it was a large or medium, but I literally drank like that much out of it. It was so vile. It was the nastiest coffee. It comes really close to that one coffee company that I like to pick on their espresso for. I mean, theirs is a little bit better than that. I literally couldn't drink this coffee. It was so bad. And so they have improved it some over the years, but to go back to your question about the Thai and the pu'er, the batch of pu'er that we got in had been roasted over there, and so I'm wanting to really, before I make a judgment call on that, I'm wanting to get some in
Okay.
and roast it myself and see what the difference is to make it a real comparison. They did their lighter roast lighter than what I would have done it a little bit. It was more towards the it was much more of a cinnamon roast, they would call it, which is really a light colored bean. I'm trying to see if I even have any. It would be maybe a little bit darker than this. It would be kind of
really light.
Yeah, it was really light. It was like a medium to tan.
Looked like you already put the cream in it, huh?
Yeah, and as a bean, and so I thought it was a little bit, maybe a little bit under roasted from what I would do.
Still really good coffee.
It
of course,
was.
but
It
just
really
one of those
was.
things of not just. I mean, when we're talking about degrees of perfection here. We're not talking about that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, when you get to be a coffee snob, it's really, you can get picky. And I'm not near as picky as some people. There's some people that I just go tilt.
Now, is it true, in direct correlation with coffee snobbery is the length of your beard? The longer it gets, the more snobby you get?
Maybe.
Okay.
Hopefully. It has a lot to do with your taste buds too, and how developed they are. And I would like to say mine are that developed, but I don't think they are.
Oh.
It's one of those skills that I don't know that I've totally nailed down yet.
So how many creams and how many sugars do you take in your coffee?
None.
None.
That's sacrilege.
I knew the answer to that one ahead of time. I just thought I'd ask that question for fun.
Yeah, my dad used to use cream and sugar in his, and nope, that's sacrilege. I want to know. I don't know. I want to know that bean. I want to know what that bean exemplifies, and that's why I'm not a real big dark coffee roast fan, because I want to know what does that area of the world taste like. I don't know how else to describe it, but
Now, have you ever done the chocolate-covered coffee beans?
that's like a major weakness for me. We're still working on that one. I want to do some chocolate and caramel covered coffee beans.
Oh, now that sounds just
Oh man.
terrific.
When I used to work at the grocery store here in Iowa called Fairway, I would at night, if I was getting tired, I would grab a handful of coffee beans and a pack of Rolos or I'd buy a bag of coffee and take a handful of coffee beans, and I'd sit there and eat Rolos and coffee beans together. It's just the cat's meow. It really is, but yeah. So chocolate covered coffee beans are just Then I'll do a little bit like a dark coffee or a dark.
Dark roast goes a little bit better with X, kind of
Like the dark
older.
or the dark bean, or the dark chocolate.
Ooh.
There's a company north of here, up in Sioux Center, Iowa, called Casey's Bakery. It's not Casey's
Right, general
gas
store,
station.
yeah.
This is actually Casey's Bakery, and they're kind of famous. I think they used to be more famous for like their almond patties and some of their cinnamon rolls and stuff like that. But they make chocolate covered coffee beans, and they'll do like a dark roast or a
Dark chocolate?
dark chocolate and an espresso bean, and then they'll do a milk chocolate with espresso too. And it's just,
Pretty good.
yeah, I usually eat way too many of them on my way home. I'll buy 2 of the little boxes, they're like that big. And
Now, does that wake you up quite a bit when you take a bean like that, or?
I
mean, theoretically, should it?
Theoretically, it probably should.
Okay.
I
Now, is it true that if you really, really want the full effect of the caffeine, you brew your coffee in Red Bull? Is that?
don't know.
No, I'm just kidding. So
It's like ruining it to me.
So the teas here. First one you got here is a Pu'er Kung Fu loose leaf green tea. Now, tell us a little bit about that? Is that just kind of a typical green tea that you guys? I mean, by typical, I mean it's Pu'er, so it's a really nice
Right.
green tea. But is it kind of your staple green tea here?
Yeah, it is. It's very much a staple green tea, but it's for somebody that wants to get started in the higher grade teas. We've priced it at the kind of what would be real competitive. You know, I mean, you buy
the
it.
price real quick.
Yeah.
So it's
It should be
wow, right there, $1 for 3 grams.
Right.
Now
That's just a sampler.
right. So that's just a sampler. Now let's say 50 grams, and that's gonna be drinking tea every week for a couple weeks.
Yeah, probably. And it's really comparable. That 50 grams is really comparable to what you would get in a box of tea.
Right.
If you were to go out and buy the rectangular boxes of Bigelow or
Which I don't know why you do that, but
right.
well, and this is where. So okay, now that's a great comparison though, because it's $6.50. I mean that's pretty close to what you're going to get in a Bigelow or whatnot. But here's the thing about those are probably $4.50, so maybe a little bit cheaper there. But this is better tea, number one, and this is incredibly competitively priced for loose leaf, because that's the big difference between Bigelow and this
Right.
too. And the other thing about this is a Pu'er you can re-steep.
Right.
Lower grade quality teas you
Two when you're done.
shouldn't. Yeah, once, twice maybe if you want it a little weak. But Pu'er you can re-steep and steep it probably 3 or 4 times, depending on the process that you go and you
Well,
use
we've done this one at least 5 times right now.
right.
Yeah, I mean at least 5 times, and I only probably used 2.5, 3 grams. I didn't use a lot in here, and so the two of us have had 5 steeps out of this.
And so here the next one, it's really going to challenge my pronunciation skills. So the trick to being able to pronunciate something, pronunciate's not even the right word, is you say it fast with confidence. So here we go. Pu'er Mofeng Feather Mountain Black Tea.
Oh, the Mofeng Feather Mountain Black.
Did I do okay on that?
Yeah, you
Mofeng?
did. This one is a really
Fast and with confidence.
this one's a really just a nice. It's a fairly basic black tea, fairly basic in my realm of teas. It would be a very high grade.
Right, I was going to say,
But you would
once you hear that Pu'er, that's high grade tea.
Right.
I mean, that's good tea.
all of these are high mountain elevation grown. They're grown in about the same elevation range as the coffees, which are in that 4,000 to 5,000 foot elevation range. The 1,200 to 1,500 foot, or 1,200 to 1,500 meter range.
Okay.
So the thing with coffees and the things with teas is the higher mountain, when you get into that 4,000 to 5,500 foot elevation range, that's where you start getting into the higher grade teas and coffees. And you got to have the right climate zone too, because you got to have the proper temperature so you don't kill the plants and stuff, which is why it's so hard for us to grow coffee in the United States. There's only one area of the United States can even grow coffee, and that's California. They've just now in the last couple of years started, there's a company there that has started growing American grown coffee.
Interesting.
But we don't have the climate
It's
zone
just
to do it.
Not a good coffee probably either.
Actually, theirs is a specialty grade coffee.
Okay.
It is a specialty grade coffee, but it's they've had to do a lot of work with it too.
Is it true that it's watered with leftist tears? Is that
That might be.
okay? The next one up is the loose leaf white tea, which is just kind of once again these are the 3 basic teas. If you're getting into tea drinking, want to get into tea drinking, these are the 3 to start with. I mean, it's just a green, a black, and a white. And so here's the secret. when it comes to these kind of different teas and the preparation side of things. That's more where I come in here. For a black tea, you steep it a little bit longer generally and at a higher heat. For a green, it's a little bit less heat and a little bit less time, and for a white, it's even less heat and even less time. And that's kind of what brings them out. But a black tea is, in a general sense, now I'm drinking a black tea here. It's not bitter at all. But a black tea generally is a little bit bitter, heavier would maybe be the right word there, kind of a thing. Probably similar to kind of like a dark roast coffee would be my guess. A green tea has almost a citrus flavor to it generally. And a white tea is more of a floral flavor in those kind of things. That sound kind of in your experience too?
Yeah. And I mean, you're drinking and this one, our water is still hot. It's not as hot as you would normally try to brew a black tea at. You would try to normally brew it in like the 205, 210 range, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, maybe even, I can't remember because...
I think it's just off boiling, basically.
Yeah, I was going to say a little bit less than boiling. My teapot that I use most of the time, my tea kettle, electric one, it's on Celsius. So
Yeah.
it was the cheaper one on Amazon. That's how I went with that one.
It always goose me up. But isn't that about 100 degrees then? Is like a black
I normally do that one. I normally let it come off just a little bit of that 100 degrees, just so it's not quite that hot. But yeah, I mean, if you steep a white tea at boiling, you're going to scorch the tea. That's
that one you want to have closer to like the 170,
Yep, exactly.
175 range. The green teas are more like a 180, 185 ish. And I think the
black tea's kind of in that 210 to 220. Like I think in 212 is that number just came to my mind.
Yeah.
Which, not that I don't think I've ever gotten it to a degree.
Right.
If you can, all more power to you.
One of the other ones there that's another really good one. It's one of the more basic teas is the 90-year-old wild.
Okay.
And there you'll see
the 80-year-old wild tree pu'er tea cake.
No.
Okay. 90-year-old, the one right under it.
Yeah, the
90-year-old wild tree loose leaf.
And it's an unfermented tea, so it is not. It is not fermented. There's the difference between a non-fermented and a fermented is they can do a dry ferment, if I remember right, and then there's a wet ferment. And
we're not talking about alcohol being in the fermentation either. Like that's something, because I know some people kind of think about that. Oh, they're alcoholic teas, because there are alcoholic teas, of course, out there. These aren't that we're just talking about the process.
Right, and it has something to do with I don't understand the whole process, and there's a lot to learn about tea, and I actually have some courses that I bought on Udemy that I'm going to actually be going through and getting certified and stuff, but I just haven't had the time yet. But there's with teas, there's so much to learn.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, your wife works for a tea seller and stuff, or a tea company, so
yeah. And we first started off, me and my wife, I got into tea a little quicker than she did. I kind of I wouldn't say introduced her to tea, she liked tea, but I kind of really got into the loose leaf tea quicker than she did, and got into the tea shop a little bit more than she did of just going there. And she really started to like it, and in fact ended up getting her job because we went there so often.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing of she was quitting her job and was just kind of looking for a part-time job, and just said, hey, if you ever need somebody, and the owner knew us so well because we were there several times a week, and but she knows 100 times more about tea than what I know. She'll sit there and study it out because she wants to know about the teas. And so she'll probably listen to this podcast and go, oh, you ever asking terrible questions. But
you guys goofed it up.
Yeah. But that kind of brings us to the next one, because this is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Different kind of a one here. And this is an 80-year-old wild tree pu'er tea cake. Now, these are a little bit more expensive than like loose leaf, actually. I don't really know if it is more expensive looking at the price and looking at how many grams it is. 'Cause it says it's 357 grams. And
which is a lot of tea.
that's a lot of tea.
Right.
A lot of tea. But tell us just a little bit, what's the difference between a tea cake and just normal loose leaf?
The tea cake is still the full size leaves. It's just been compressed into a probably a much more stable shipping method. Is my kind of understanding of it from the shipping standpoint, because I always have to be really careful, and I work really hard to make sure that on the loose leaf teas that they have some padding around them, but they have the room to jostle
around.
and move and not break and stuff too. And
It's why they never fill a tea bag all the way up.
right,
And I'm not talking about a tea bag this deep. I'm talking about when you buy loose
Yeah.
leaf tea in a bag.
yeah. So that's my big understanding of it. I don't know that it really affects the flavor of the tea.
It does, actually.
It does, okay.
It does. Kind of that idea of the teapot that you're talking about last episode. I can't remember the name of it.
The Yixing. It's I'm not even by the
Yeah, but it's a teapot that kind of you steep the same tea in it over and over and over again, and it kind of collects the flavor, builds up. Well, at tea cake, when they, from what I understand, is the way that they press it in there is that it kind of like presses the flavor together, even more so. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that quite perfectly, but it gives it a richer, fuller, deeper flavor even. And then also if they're in a tea cake, it's a little bit stronger, and so you can re-steep it even more times than the normal way.
So, after 5 or 6 steeps on this, should I add some more, or you think this is still?
So I think the next one you do, because the last one was just a little bit weaker, you can tell you're coming down the mountain. I think it'd still be drinkable for one more. But if we want to put a little bit more in it, it would kind of kick it up just a little bit.
All right. So we'll show the large bag that the tea comes in and stuff. So, but
Now
well, large bag to me. I break it down into smaller bags and stuff for everybody. But yeah.
Now this next one is kind of neat because it's a fermented pearl tea ball.
Right. So a couple episodes ago, we did a loose leaf version of this, and as I lovingly joke around, it's the tea that if pirates drank tea, that would be the one that they would drink. That's just the tea ball version of it,
Right.
and yeah. So
And as you can tell, that changed the flavor because it's the same tea, but it's packed together differently. And these are, so the tea pearls or tea balls, we'll call them tea pearls for this because tea balls, you might steep loose leaf tea in a tea ball. But tea pearls are fascinating. If you have kids, it's something that's worth getting just for the experience, to have them watch, putting that in there, and if you can get a clear container, you can watch them expand as you steep them. And it's just kind of
it's fun.
Yeah, and it tastes good too. I mean, it's worth drinking.
Right.
But it's one of those things of, I just think it's kind of neat.
There's some that I have not wrapped my head around them yet. I mean, I'll see these, and you can go on Amazon and get them or whatever, but they'll have like a hyacinth flower or some weird exotic flower, and they'll have it compressed in there, and you put it in your tea, in the tea pitcher, and you'll watch that flower just open up, and
Yeah,
I don't.
it becomes an art.
It does. There's
Now here's one I've never even heard of before.
okay.
Okay. Pu'er fermented tea inside a green mandarin orange. Now, what is this inside a green mandarin orange? How does that work?
They compress it. They dry.
I could see the picture, and so that's
Right.
cool. But
And basically what they do is they pack the tea ball inside of the green mandarin orange. So in other words, the mandarin orange has not been allowed to turn orange.
okay,
It's still green, and they'll cut off the top of it, and they'll clean it out, and they'll stuff the tea inside of it, and then they lay them out and they let them dry and ferment, and then they package them up and they put the little cap back on it and all that. And
Now, so do you actually steep the orange with it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
yep.
See, now I didn't have to ask that. I mean,
Yeah.
And does that give it kind of a citrusy flavor then? Or has it been a little while?
It's been a little while since I've had that one, and so one of these. In fact, remind me on the next episode when we'll steep that one because I haven't had.
Okay.
I just haven't had that one in a while. I remember it was good, but I just don't. Like I said, it's been a while since I've had it.
Yeah,
and-
we'll have to try that one out next time. But that sounds fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see that.
yeah.
So the next one here, this one's a good one. A 500-year-old ancient tree Pu'er Dragon Pearl tea ball.
Mm-hmm. So that tea cake that I gave you was
Right.
the large version of that.
Yeah. Oh.
So you've obviously had that.
So that I drank a lot of tea. My wife has drank a lot of tea. We made that. We were like going, oh, we'll see how it goes, kind of a thing. You know, we'll see. We're like drinking that, and I mean, all of a sudden we're just like, whoa. I mean, it's every sip. I mean, the honey notes. Sometimes some people like to put a little honey in their tea, kind of sweeten it up a little bit. I mean, if you're doing working on your throat or something like that, still want to put the honey in because it doesn't have the effect of honey.
Right.
But I mean, it's like you put honey in the thing. I mean, and I'm not saying that if you don't like honey, it's not like this overbearing flavor, but it's just like, whoa. My wife doesn't like honey, and she's just like, well, it's just got this honey note at the very end, where it's just. She was just like, wow. We're going. This is the best tea we've had. I actually took it over to a little bit over to the tea shop.
Tea shop.
And had the owner try it, and she was going, whoa, that is good tea.
Really, that's
So,
cool.
I mean, it is just, and she's had a lot of tea. Lots of people send her samples and things like that. I mean, it's just
Right.
like, wow, that is just excellent tea.
And that one's, the tea pearl on that one, the dragon tea ball on that one, is a much more affordable way of getting basically the same thing that's in the tea cake. I know that the tea cake is expensive.
There's a reason for it.
Yeah, there's a
It's
reason
expensive
for
tea.
it, and it costs me a lot, and so it's. But if you look at it, and this is the thing that people need to understand, I think on tea, because you may look at this and go, oh, it's $25 for this bag of tea or whatever, like our red needle tea that we'll probably get to here in a little bit, or some of the other ones, or like the 500-year-old ancient tree tea cake. That's $125 for that 357 grams. But when you break that down and you realize I'm only using 3 grams per multiple steeps, 2 or 3 or 4 cups of tea.
Well, we got a container to put the tea cake in, and I was looking at it, and I was going, oh yeah, it's a good sized tea cake, but I don't know how, generally we don't get tea cakes, and so I don't know what that compares to, and we will buy tea. We drink enough tea. We buy it in what we call bulk, which is kind of a container about that big, and we'll fill it up with tea, which is it's expensive, but generally when you buy something in bulk, it's cheaper,
right.
And I mean, we put that tea cake and it filled up a whole one of those. Where I mean, my wife, she came home and she said, "Yeah, I thought for a second there I was gonna have to get another container for it because I mean we're talking about it was that big." And so I mean, you're talking about a lot of tea here.
Right.
And not just a lot of tea. Literally, we're talking cream of the crop tea.
Right.
And that's, once again, something that this ministry is all about, is excellence for the Lord. You're not going to get a piece of junk from this website. You're not going to get coffee that gags you.
Right.
You're not going to get tea that gags you, unless you try to chew it, maybe. I don't know. I've never tried to just eat tea. It tastes good. That's a story for another day. So the next one up is actually that Pu'er Red Needle loose
Yeah.
leaf black tea, and we've had that before, I think, haven't we?
Yep. We've had that. We've had the white. We've had the Imperial Palace fermented, the kind of nautical flavored one.
And this is a really good tea.
The Red Needle.
Yep,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of that next step up from the normal black tea. So if you kind of want to, if you're starting off, I'd suggest getting that black tea, the white tea, and the green tea. Get one of each. If you need to, you can get it as low as $1, and that's a sampler right there.
Yeah, it's 3 gram sampler, which is going to be enough for 3 or 4 cups of tea. And you're going to notice the especially if you're doing the shorter steeps on them. If you're doing a 5-minute steep on it, you're probably going to get 1 or 2. You're going to probably get 2 cups out of it. It's
Right. That's the way they're kind of designed.
right, and so you want to do the shorter steeps, and we have a bunch of videos on the website on doing what we call the gung fu, or is commonly known as the gung fu method of tea brewing, where you do shorter steeps. You'll notice that when I'm steeping this here, I haven't been doing 5-minute steeps. I've been doing a minute and a half, maybe on the high side, for the steeps and stuff, and so you get more steeps out of them. Going back to the tea balls that we were talking about, or the tea pearls, you might say, excuse me, that we were talking about earlier, those are 6 to 7 grams most of the time, and so that's enough for more of like 5, 6, 8 cups of tea, and you're going to be able to have, so even that 500-year-old ancient tree pearl tea ball, that one, that's a 5 or 6 or 6 or 7 gram tea ball. So on that one, I would use that one if I had a family celebration and I had 7 or 8, 9, 10 people over. That would make enough for everybody to have some. And if you had a standard pack of it, of 4 of them, you're going to have enough there for quite a few people.
Yeah, just a quick story on kind of the tea pearls there. Not yours, but this, when we first were getting into tea, and we got my wife got some oolong. I think they were oolong. No, I don't remember what they were, but they were tea pearls. I believe they were oolong dragon pearls or something like that. And we had them, and I wasn't thinking one day. I just decided to make some tea, and you're looking and you're going, oh boy, I don't know how many to put in there, because they're kind of little tiny things. They're not really big, but they expand. That's the thing. They're wound tight and they expand. And so I'm just kind of having them. So I go, I'll just grab a kind of handful, put them in there. Oh man, I had coffee. It was, afterwards. I mean, you're looking at, man. Oh, it tastes like you put the church foyer coffee right there, been burnt, and sat there for all day on the coffee pot. That's what it tasted like, and it was tea. And I came home. Sarah came home, and I said, man, that new tea you got, it's terrible. And she's going, what? I love it. What are you talking about? And she goes, well, how'd you make it? And I told her, and she looks and she goes, you used half of this. I mean, you don't know how expensive these things are. It's because these things are designed to use a few of them, let them expand, and even if you are doing the longer method, you should get 3 or 4 steeps out of them.
Yeah, you should put 1 in there.
Right.
And you're going to get,
Yeah, she was like, she told me with the teapot that I was using, she goes, 2, maybe 3. And I mean, I probably had 15 in there. I mean, that's that was, learn from my mistake here. Don't do that.
That's funny.
But kind of in another way here, and just for sake of time, I'll just have you touch on this just briefly, but the single steep tea biscuits and small tea cakes, those are just kind of, if you don't want to measure it out, already measured out for you, just pop one in and you're good to go, right?
Yeah, and that's going to weigh about, in that ballpark of that 6 to 7 grams again. They're about the same size, only compressed and flat instead of round of the tea ball.
And so 40 there, how many comes in that package? 5, 6?
There's usually 6, sometimes there's 7. It just kind of fluctuates a little bit.
So I mean, look at, for $17 right there, that's pretty good out there. You get 6 or 7 not cups of tea, but pots of tea.
Right.
I mean, that's
right. and again, that goes back to what I was starting to say earlier. You know, where if you're having a celebration and stuff, and you know, you think about it. Like I said, I'm not a drinker, but you know, you can spend $40 on a bottle of wine or $80 or whatever on it. I don't even know.
Well,
I know you can spend a lot of money on
a
it.
12-pack of pop, a Pepsi.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even know because we don't really.
Right, I don't either. But you know, you're gonna be able to have a really high grade tea that will go really well with your different foods and stuff. And actually, that's something that I want to do is put together I have a tea pairings list, and I need to get that on the website. And
This tea will go good with anything.
Mm-hmm. It really will.
Pizza, steak, doesn't matter. This thing goes good with it. I can tell you that right now because it's just good tea.
Yeah.
The next one, though, is one of those that you might have to pair a little bit, and that's it sounds like one I would love: Cranberry Twilight Loose Leaf Tea.
Mm-hmm. That's one that we've created on our own, just to have a little bit different. Let's see, the Cranberry Twilight. I'm trying to remember. I think the Cranberry Twilight has the black tea, the Imperial, or not the Imperial, the Feather Mountain Black is the base, and then we pair it with the cranberries and Star Anise, and cloves. Actually, that one might be the green tea. Can you read the description on there? On that one?
It's the last one on the page, so I went back here. It is...
I have two recipes and two different teas that we made up. And
It's the green. It's the green.
It is the green. Okay.
With clothes and sunrise.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Cranberry Twilight has the green tea, the Star Anise, the cranberries, and the cloves in it. And that one's just a really nice.
Well, it's kind of really good around a fireplace, right? On a winter night.
Yeah, that's
I'm
kind
just
of what
reading
we
from
did.
the description.
Well, but that's kind of what we designed it for. Was kind of that more Christmassy, more. It doesn't. I mean, you don't have to drink it during Christmas time. I mean, you can drink it year round. But
well, one of my favorite teas that I've had is a white tea that's a vanilla. Has kind of a vanilla type flavor to it, and it was designed originally to be a Christmas tea. It was called. I'll have to get back to you on what it was called, but now it's called Vanilla Biscotti. I don't remember what it was called before, and it was one of those. I think it was Sleigh Bells or something like that. But it was, I mean, it was one of those where I was like, I went to the tea owner and I said, "You got to have this all year round," and
right.
we make it worth it for them to have it. So,
the Winter Sunrise, I think, is on the next page. And the Winter Sunrise is the next one that we created, and that one has the black tea with some lemon,
almonds in there, maybe.
What's that?
Has it got some nuts in that one?
No, it has lemon and orange.
Oh,
and,
that's what I'm seeing there.
Again, I think the Star Anise. I don't remember.
Oh, when we get to it all, I can look at that description.
And,
Do you want me to pull it up right now? Actually,
I know it has cinnamon in it. And so it's got that really kind of cinnamony, orange lemon type of a vibe going on that pairs well with the black tea.
Yeah, that would be really good with the black tea. Mm-hmm. I mean,
and so that's why we paired that one with the Feather Mountain Black.
Yeah. Wow.
And so we're gonna, we'll start doing some more offerings on the different blends and stuff like that, but. So for right now, I'm really trying to focus in on bringing just the really high grade loose leaf teas right now, and then as we move through time, we'll expand more.
So you had the red needle, which was the step up from the black tea. I'm guessing this is the step up from the green tea here. Pilo Chun.
Yeah, the Pilo Chun. Yep.
Pilo Chun. See, like I said, confidence and fast. And and this one's just any.
It's a green tea, but the name actually means snail because
it looks like snails.
It looks like snails, and I know it's not snails. It's just that they take the tea leaves, the whole leaf tea leaves, and this one's really fun too. I really enjoy making this one because they take each individual tea leaf and they roll it into that little tiny ball, and so it looks like a snail. And as you're making the tea, that you'll watch that unfurl, and you get this great big leaf in there, and out of this little bitty tiny
I bet
tea
that's
ball.
just packed full of flavor.
It is. It's really good,
And
I really enjoy that one.
next up is the Wild Tree Black Tea.
That's the one that we were talking about several weeks back, that we made, that I think is fantastic for. Well, it's fantastic on its own in its own right as a tea, but it makes a fantastic kombucha.
Oh, okay.
Because the thing on that one is it's got a fairly strong fruit note to it anyway. But it's got that honey and that fruit note on its own, and the tea leaves. I mean, the way they're roasted and stuff, they're black. I mean, they're it's really easy for me to identify that one out of all of them, just because.
Oh yeah, even in the picture you can tell that
it's black. But when you make kombucha out of it, the flavor profile of the tea as you let it sit for that whole week while you're brewing your kombucha, it gets fruitier and fruitier and fruitier and fruitier, and so by the end of the week, when you start drinking it, you're like, this is a completely different animal than what it was a week ago. And it's just got so much more fruit notes to it that it's like you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do a second brew on it. You don't have to add fruit to it. You don't have to add anything to it to have that really fruity flavor to it. And I'm really partial to that one as a kombucha and stuff. But I'm really partial to it as a regular tea too. I mean, it's just really.
Well, hold that thought there, because I'm going to ask you
Okay.
what your favorite tea is here. Make you choose your favorite child. So, and then I'll have a little bit of an easier question for you, maybe at the very end, that will kind of tie everything together, because we're getting close to our hour here. But the next three, we'll kind of lump them a little bit together here, because they're all the tea cakes or the pu'ers, tea cakes. And this is first of all the 500-year-old ancient tree pu'er. The raw tea cake there,
Right.
the one that we're talking about, the real expensive one. Oh, but man, it's worth it. It's worth it. I mean, that's. If I could encourage you to buy something, I know you're sitting here going, "Oh, you picked the most expensive thing." There's a reason. It's that good. I mean, now if you're just getting into teas and you're don't know how to steep them yet and things like that, buy the cheaper stuff.
Right.
Learn. That's what it's there for. Just as you, what was it? This episode or no? It was the last episode we were talking about the friend who bought their kid a brand new car and went out and crashed it.
After 6 months.
Yeah, in less than 6 months. Don't crash one of these.
Right.
Crash on a couple cheaper ones, and then about a month later, when you get it all figured out, buy 7 of them. That's what I suggest. And the next one is the Imperial Palace fermented tea cake. And this one's a little bit cheaper, but tell us a little bit about this one.
This one is basically the tea cake version of the Imperial Palace, which is the one that I lovingly joke around that it's the pirate tea.
Okay. And this one would probably be pretty nautical flavor too on the tea cake, because they're very similar.
Right. And like I said on that one, that's one that I would encourage people to try and continue trying.
Well, it was like the first cup that I had, because we always have about 3, 4, maybe 5 cups of tea. We're doing a podcast. And I was trying it, and I was like, well, yeah, that nautical flavor, that's the way to describe it. Because I was sitting here thinking, I'll think of a better description. When you're saying, no, that's the description. That's the description. And it's, I don't know, you try it the first one, and you're going, there's nothing bad, nothing wrong with it. You're just going, okay. The second, you're like, I'm going to go back for another. Oh, third one? Yeah, that's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, it builds on you. It grows on you a little bit.
It really is. And that one's gotten to be one that I do enjoy. The more I've had it, the more I enjoy it. It's still not my, of all of them, it's not my favorite, but it's one that I definitely enjoy and wouldn't pass up if somebody offered me some.
Right.
So.
And so then we have the white tea cake.
Right.
And that's just kind of, the white tea made in a cake form.
Right, right.
So what's your favorite tea?
That's really hard because
It wasn't hard for me. It was that.
I like that one, but I like the Red Needle too, but I like the Pilo Chun. I mean, it's hard for me.
They're all your favorite in their own way?
Yeah, they're all unique, and that's the thing I like about. That's the same thing I like about coffee, though. There's certain things that I like about a Kenyan that are different than the Thai, but that's the thing I like about it. It's kind of like a taking almost. I know this is kind of sound corny, but it's really, for lack of a better way of saying it, it's like a flavor safari. You get to go and try all these different things, and it's like I just like the variety of it. So it is hard for me to decide that. This one has been very good, and
I'm not a huge black tea fan, so I'm always a little bit skeptical, a little bit ready for kind of a dirty, bitter flavor, just a little bit with black tea. It's not there with this one. I mean, this one, it doesn't quite have the honey notes or the sweet notes that like a white tea would have, and it doesn't have the citrus that a green tea would have, but it's got a little bit of both of those still. And so for black tea, I'm sitting there going like, man, that's the best black tea I've had. I mean, that's really good black tea.
yeah.
It's not an Assam, which is like an Irish breakfast tea or something like that, which is basically a way to say, if you want to make tea and drink coffee at the same time, that's what an Assam is. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like an Irish breakfast tea. You could replace that with your coffee and not know the difference. That's not, that's not what this is. This is just a little bit of a mellower black tea. It's just excellent.
Yeah. So,
So here's the question to end it all, because we're right about that hour mark.
okay.
And we didn't get a chance to talk into spiritual things like we normally do. So this is kind of how we're going to tie it all together. What's your favorite Bible verse?
That's just as hard of a question as the tea. I mean, what subject are we talking about?
What's your life verse?
Probably go into all the world and make disciples of all men.
Okay.
Because really, our treasure is not down here on earth. It's not going to stay with us. What we have down here on earth is not going to last. It's not going to stay. It's nothing we build here is eternal. It's the people that we build here that are eternal. And I have this. You've been to my acreage here. Obviously, you're on it right now, and you've seen my barn. Our barn was built. Probably it was the same time the house was built, so 1905, 1910, and back
Brad
when they
was
farmed
only
with
14 at that time.
and back when they farmed with horses in the South, they didn't do deep foundations back then, and really you could tie that to a parallel to our scriptural foundations. How deep is our foundation? Because the foundation that's deep is the one that's going to last. Well, the foundation on that barn was 3 feet deep or something. Well, as no rain gutters on and time and you get a lot of rain washing off of it, it'll wash the dirt away from the foundation and stuff. And so the south wall on my barn has that foundation has gotten washed away over the years, and then between that and the pigs and stuff that I raise, they pushed it out, and so the middle section finally just went like this, where it, here's the foundation, and it just kind of went like this and rolled out. And so how do you want your life to go? How do you want your eternal spiritual, your eternal life to go? Do you want it to be a crumbled mess that is going to be really expensive to fix? I mean, it's not going to be a cheap fix to fix the barn, which is why it's sitting the way it is. I mean, you know, you're talking $150,000 to fix the barn probably. And
barn's probably not worth $150,000, you know, kind of a thing.
you know, yeah. So you know, it's just time and life and the weathering of the storms and stuff. You know, they do damage to things, and tying that all back to our eternal life. You know, how are we helping those around us to build their lives? And going back to what we were talking about on the last episode of you know, just influencing our children and sowing into them. When we sow into them and we build their foundation, then they have a solid foundation that they can then go out and they can help build the future generations' foundations on. And so that go into all the world and make disciples of all men is by far probably my life verse, because it that and the one about building your house on the rock and not on the sand. Mm-hmm. And because we live over by the Dakota Dunes, just outside of Sioux City, and there's a reason they call it the Dunes, because it's part of the Missouri River bottom, and so it's literally sand. And people have built these big $1 million, $2 million, $3 million homes out there, and I'm like,
that's not smart.
They literally put floodgates in the houses, in the basements. What intelligence? Well, I live in the dunes. Well, hello, McFly. You know, it's, you know, okay, so you have $1 million house up there. I hope you have good flood insurance too, you know. So,
well,
that's kind of where I'm at on that. So,
well, I think about it too, just to kind of to tie it all together, going to all the world and make disciples. Yeah, that's exactly what Teshua's doing. Mm-hmm. Going into Asia and all over, kind of really in Asia, and it's not just rescuing girls from sex trafficking. It's not just creating great products, although it is those things. Mm-hmm. It's ultimately making disciples of Jesus Christ, and of course, no one can be forced to become a disciple of Christ, right. And we've talked about that before. But it is that idea of lovingly rescuing these girls out of physical slavery, but ultimately it's showing them how they can be rescued from spiritual slavery. Mm-hmm. And many of them have placed their trust in their lives in Jesus Christ. And so what these products do, it's not just something that, oh, hey, you're getting a great product. We just talked for an hour about products, how great they were, without even tying it to ministry. We didn't need to do that. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it is tied to ministry, as what ends up happening is it makes these girls self-sufficient so they don't have to go back into that sex trade. Mm-hmm. It's not just saving them for a time from that. It's saving them for their whole life from that, so that they have other options. And it's a means to take the gospel to them. Right. Because 50%, first of all, immediately goes back, right, to the...
Yeah, 50% of the profit goes, but then 100% of the donations. Right. So somebody chooses to donate.
You're buying the product, though, and that's going directly to the girls in the ministry. That, like, they're selling it.
Right.
And then plus you're giving 50%. So you're paying a time and a half, probably more than that, really.
Right.
And then plus donations there. And that's how this works. It's more that it's not a business, it's a ministry.
Right. So, by the way, I have had my T-shirt on today. I've had my Teshua T-shirt on. So these are available on the site. We have a lot of other products on there and stuff. But please like and subscribe and share. Like I said in the previous videos, it really does help us to have you comment. Give us questions about the teas if you have some questions, or tell us what you like or don't like about the show or whatever, and tell me if you like my new chairs that I got, You're going
to find out they're going to say they don't like me.
We have a good time. But like and subscribe and share and let other people know, because the more we can get the word out and help do this, the better things are going to go, and the more products we can buy from the girls, because we buy them up front from the girls, so they've been paid for all this stuff. And it allows us to be able to turn that product over faster and put more money into their hands overall. So Anyway, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And join us next week on the Liberty Unveiled podcast. Have a great day. Bye-bye. You've been listening to the Liberty Unveiled podcast, setting captives free one episode at a time. The Liberty Unveiled podcast is a part of the Unresolved Podcast Network and has been brought to you by Teshuah Tea Company, TESHUAHTEA.com or DeliveranceTea.com.